Have you ever felt like, oh man, I'm getting older and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm just gonna keep slowing down and I won't be able to do the things, or I can't do the things that I used to be able to do. I won't be able to do the things that I want to do. It's depressing in a way. And I know I've felt that way. And while this fear might actually be true, the question is, to what degree? How much slowing down and how fast does it need to be? Today I want to share with you how I reversed my biological age by 9 years, plus 1. So a total of 10 years. And there's a reason I'm separating out that 1 year, which we'll talk about later on in the video. And as I mentioned, biological age, and biological age as measured by a blood test through a company called Inside Tracker. They call it their inner age test. First, let me give you some context, and don't worry, I'll get to the answer just in a minute. On August 24th, 2022, I did my first biological age blood test. My chronological age at the time was 51.3, and the results came back and said my biological age was 42.3, a total of 9 years. So the question is, how did you reverse your biological age by 9 years? Well, you probably won't like the answer, because it's not a magic pill or some super secret supplement or some mysterious life hack. It's something that's available to everyone, and it costs next to nothing. And that is, are you ready? Diet and exercise. Now, before you click off this video, I'm going to tell you specifically what diet and what exercise. And first, let's talk about exercise. A few years ago, I got it into my head that I wanted to do the Grand Canyon, hike/run the Grand Canyon, rim to rim to rim. And I wanted to do it in 16 hours. And this meant that I had to get in shape. And that meant running and hiking. The exercise I focused on the most back then was just that, running and hiking. I would run about 2 to 3 days per week and on the weekends. And the weekends was mostly hiking/running, and I would focus on elevation gain. I would focus on going up hills and going down hills repeatedly for hours. I was also walking a few miles per day about 6 days per week. That's it. That was the exercise I focused on. Now, I did a little bit of strength training, but it wasn't very much, and it wasn't very consistent, which was a mistake, by the way. Next, let's talk about diet. As part of my training for the Grand Canyon, I decided to do a ketogenic diet. My goal was to become fat adapted, so I could use both fat and carbs on those very, very long runs, especially in the Grand Canyon. Now, the way I was doing keto was high fat, low carb, moderate protein, and unlimited above ground vegetables, mainly leafy greens. I would very often eat a big, giant salad, and often I would include a large pile of steamed broccoli for lunch or dinner, or both. I should also mention that I was doing intermittent fasting, and I was eating on average about 2 meals per day, and that's it. That's what I did to reverse my age by 9 years. And you might be wondering, well, what about supplements? At the time, the only supplement that I was taking was collagen. I started taking collagen because I hoped that it might help my joints for all the running and the hiking I was doing, and I found that it did help. Now, let's talk about that plus 1. On January 18th, 2024, I did a second blood test, also through Inside Tracker. My chronological age at the time was 52.7. The results came back, and it said that my biological age was 42.7, for a total of 10 years younger. So this means that just under a year and a half, I only aged biologically by 4 months. And I realize that others have made way more progress than that and have a much bigger gap between their chronological age and their biological age. But people have asked me, well, how did you do it? So I decided to make this video. And if you like it, please remember to subscribe. Thank you. Now, I also recognize that it's better to test more often because the results are more accurate. The more tests you have, you look at the tests across multiple results. And the more that you measure, the easier it is to make improvements. The problem is that it also costs money. So I've been testing as often as I can afford to. Now, with this in mind, the question is, well, how did you reverse your biological age by a whole nother year? What did you change? First of all, let's talk about exercise. And the thing that I changed about exercise is I began focusing on strength training to build, to get stronger and to build a little bit of muscle mass. And this means body weight exercise as well as lifting weights. I still continue to focus on cardio, but I've had to dial that back quite a bit because of a toe injury, which I've discussed in other videos. Now, I believe that a focus on strength training has had a very significant impact, and it has played a big role in slowing down my pace of aging. Let's also talk now about diet and the things that I've changed there. First, I started allowing some more carbs. And what I mean by carbs, I mean sweet potatoes. Sometimes I would do regular potatoes. I've also allowed myself a little more fruit and sometimes rice, things like that. I still stay away from ultra-processed foods, and I've still kept my sugar very, very low. And I've actually stopped fasting quite as much. I still do it, but just not as much, not every single day. I've also reduced saturated fat and almost completely eliminated dairy for the most part. I'm still evaluating diet and changes that I might make next, but those are the changes that I made leading up to that second blood test. So you're probably also wondering about supplements. Now that is a big thing that I changed. After that first blood test, I started taking supplements like NMN and TMG and resveratrol. If you've seen my videos, I've made videos about those. Now resveratrol I took for I'd say about a year, but then I stopped taking it after a while. I made a video all about that, and you can find it on this channel. If you've been watching my videos, you know that my list of supplements has grown quite a bit. I have a pretty big list. And I have come to view supplements as part of my overall nutrition. And that said, I strongly believe that supplements are an addition to, not the replacement of, quality nutrition and a whole foods-based diet. An over-reliance on supplements at the expense of good quality food, in my opinion, is a big mistake. With all of that said, I believe that the supplements I've been taking have played a role in slowing down my pace of aging. But it's really hard for me to pinpoint specifically which supplements have had the most impact, because I haven't been patient enough or meticulous enough to measure each one or test each one individually, one at a time. Plus, again, it goes back to money. It would cost quite a lot to do that. I'm not going to go into the entire list of supplements that I've been taking because it would make this video way too long. But I have made a video all about that. And if you're interested, you can check that out right over here.